All right, guys, welcome back to Guerilla Hockey with JJ and Jesse here to talk all things Avalanche for you. A bit of a tough stretch for the Avalanche. We'll get into that in a second, but let's remember 10 games in here. Avalanche are still 7-3, sitting pretty good, I would say. A rough loss there in Vegas, rough loss in Buffalo.
Yeah.
We can go on and on. But, Jesse, you were there on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I think the talk of Avalanche land right now really is that Guerilla Sports video that we got of Nathan MacKinnon, a solid interview out of him. We have so many thoughts. I really want to dive into that interview and just break down everything we can about it. I don't know if Nathan MacKinnon really appreciates us picking apart his words here, but that's kind of what I want to do. So I guess for starters, tell me how the trip went. Obviously, welcome back home.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm going to have to start every podcast with welcome
back home.
Thank God we got a homestand in front of us. But yeah, then tell me a little bit about that interview, because I think it was very unique. I don't think it's very often that Nathan MacKinnon is ready to rock after a loss, and not only that, being as honest and forthright as he was with you.
It seemed like you guys were starting to make a push there in the second. Things got away from you guys a bit. Just how did you kind of see it unfold?
We gave up, tons of grade A scoring chances all night. Just wasn't good. Last three out of four games have been really poor from us, and tough effort. Starts with our top players to be better. We're not getting the job done, obviously, and we need to play a lot better.
Just from your perspective, what do you think is causing? Is there something that's not clicking for you guys right now, or just what are you kind of feeling?
Just feels disconnected. I feel like we're getting decent looks throughout each night, but I don't know. Just the finishing touches aren't there. The chemistry feels off. A lot of new players, and also myself, needs to be better everywhere. And yeah, it just feels like we're a little off right now. And obviously defensively, there's no excuse for that. To not put in a better effort, especially in the power play, to give up two shorties is really bad.
Again, it seemed like halfway through the energy level dipped. Did something shift on the bench, or is that just frustration starting to kind of boil over?
I actually thought we had a good first, and like you said, good first. They had two power plays. Other than that, we outplayed them 5-on-5, and then the wheels fell off, and I don't really know why, but it just got ugly and just unacceptable.
How do you guys fix it? I know it's maybe a silly question, but how does it get back on track?
I don't know. It's hard to say right now. Veteran group, obviously, we've done a lot of good things in this league, but that doesn't matter at all. Each year you have to prove yourself again and again and again. It's a tough league to produce, to get wins, but we're still 7-3. Could play better, but record's still okay, thankfully, and just gotta be better defensively.
I remember you talking about that a lot last year. It's a long season. Losses are going to happen. Obviously, in the moment, everything you just said, but 7-3, still feeling positive in the room?
Not really. I'm positive that we're a lot better than that, but we got shut out 3 of our last 4. I don't remember that's ever happened in my career here, maybe my first couple of years, but it's been a while since we've lost 7-0. I can't remember. So, obviously, just a terrible feeling, and it starts with, like I said, the best players to be better leaders on the ice.
Thanks, Nate.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, it's. I'm also going to be honest with everyone. I made a really dumb work mistake here a few minutes ago, so I'm still trying to come off being mad at myself a bit here. So I wasn't as smiley when the pod started as I normally am.
I thought you right when we turned on, you had a smile on your face, so I'm with it.
So here's the interesting thing about Nathan MacKinnon in terms of him in the locker room is, dude, he is one of the more intense people that I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And even talking to, I've talked to a couple other players recently. The Avs were in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, and I tried to talk to a few guys between both teams who have, played with players like, of that elite status, Sidney Crosby, Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid's, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin's of the world. And like a lot of people said, like, Nate is one of one. Like, even among those elite competitors, like, his personality is unique.
Mm-hmm.
He's, we refer to him sometimes as like he can be a little prickly in the locker room. Sometimes he's never rude.
Right.
He's never been rude to me. He's never been, I've never seen him be mean to anybody, but he just.
Well, I think a lot like his teammates, he demands quality out of the media,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
like, don't just come and ask me any old question. Like, have a real question for me.
And I actually think that's a great way to look at it, because the only times where he really, like, again, I never take it as rude. It's just when people ask him bad questions, he gives them like a no, like what? Like, he gives them kind of like a what kind of question is that? And I think you're right. Like, hey, we're here, we're at the highest level. You need to be at the highest level too. But so after losses, he's kind of never been the guy that any of us go to, because he is such an intense competitor that coming off of losses, there's times where he just doesn't have that. He doesn't want to have to sit there and articulate what went wrong, what went right, what was good, what was bad. He's like, no, we lost and I'm pissed. And so to your point of, he's not always like the go-to guy in the locker room after losses. For a long time, that's been Gabe Landeskog.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple people I was actually texting with, you being one of them, as that game was wrapping up and there right after, saying, these are the games where I, as a media member, really miss Gabe Landeskog, because you would know after, during the 48-point season, their 5th loss in a row, or any of these bad losses, you would know I can go to the room, I can go to Gabe Landeskog, and I'm going to get an honest answer on what happened, how the team feels, all of that. And so, to me, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, I thought that Nathan MacKinnon interview after the game, that I had with him, to me, that was him saying, you know what? And he called out in the interview, the chemistry's off. This team needs a leader. I didn't want to have to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Some people could make it look like, hey, he's just trying to get something off his chest, or hey, he wants to, spark the room a little bit, make his voice heard. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just simply him sitting there saying, what would Gabe do in this situation? Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly what Gabe would do, right? I'm going to protect the rest of the room from having to answer questions about a 7-0 beatdown.
Yep.
I'll be the one that steps up and say what I need to say, and that'll be that. And
what you just said is, I think, is such an interesting about protecting the room from having to answer these questions, because that's been a criticism of Nathan MacKinnon from other people, of like that is really kind of what Gabe Landeskog was doing there, where it's like, hey, I'm the leader, I'm the one who you should talk to.
Yeah, we go back to the 48-point season, and we talked to Gabe Landeskog so many times that year that it was obvious that that was the strategy there, because
he took it as like, I will own it and I will wear these answers. You don't need to go talk to these other guys after another loss. And that was what it felt like, again, the other night, was Nathan MacKinnon saying, like, hey, instead of going and making Andrew Cogliano, be the voice for this, I'm going to do it. And I really do. Again, it's on the heels of a 7-0 loss. But, like, to me, I thought that was significant. Like, I really did. I thought it was significant that he was willing to stand in and do that. And now I'm going to be anxious to see what he does here over the next couple of weeks as they try to dig out of this.
Yeah, I mean, last thing we wanted, and we've talked about this before, is to see Nathan MacKinnon shooting the puck over the net by 5 feet, because all he's trying to do is will the team to more victories. So,
well, and so go ahead. Are you still on the interview, or are you moving on?
No, we're still on it.
Okay. Well, then you go ahead, because maybe you're going to tee up what I was saying.
You say what you would say.
Well, now I kind of forgot. What did you say right before that? Because now I got so caught up in trying to be polite, I forgot.
All right. Well, I'll just move.
Yeah, so you just move on
forward here. My favorite part about this job, Jesse, is my ability to go in there and put my own analysis on the game that I love, right? Mm-hmm. I've always been very aware. I'm very astute at reading people's energy and body language, and that's what I really like this job for, is I can go in and do that. And I can come in and tell you guys, this is what I saw. I got these vibes. I got this energy. I got this and that. So that's what I wanted to do with today's, at least the first portion of this podcast, is really maybe even overanalyze the words that Nathan MacKinnon said.
Okay. What I was going to say was, relative to what you're talking about him on the ice saying, well, I'm just going to will us to a win. It really was, and it's part of the reason why I'm so curious to see how he carries himself here going forward, because it felt like a lot of what MacKinnon said to me was a recognition of this isn't going to work. If I just try to, bull in a China shot my way out of this, it's not going to work. It's not going to help. It's not going to help anyone else on the team. Nathan MacKinnon has always been someone who I felt elevates the play of others around him, and I feel like that's the one thing that's maybe been missing from his game early in the season is that, hey, I make you better, not just I'm going to go do it. And I think that game was him saying, this is what happens when we're all out there just trying to go do it ourselves. We got to stop. I've got to look in the mirror. I've got to look at myself, and I've got to be the one to help pull us out of this because Gabe's not here. Gabe's not coming back this season. We'll see. So I do just think that interview was a little bit of a recognition of what you were saying of the way that MacKinnon normally handles those types of situations. That's him saying to himself and everyone else, I can't do that. That's normally how I'd go about this, but in this situation, can't be like that.
Right, and I definitely picked up a hint of just a positive tone. I know he tried to tell you that the room is not very positive at the moment, but I definitely felt him making an effort to say, I'm going to treat this with a little bit more tenderness and care and make sure that a good message gets relayed to these guys. Nothing negative, because this early in the season, any negativity is going to be harmful. Yeah,
it did feel a little bit, though, like I don't think he called anyone out, but it did feel a little bit too like hey, I want everyone to hear this, and I want everyone to hear that I'm recognizing something's off, I've got to be better, and it's got to trickle down. Like, I do feel like there was a little bit of message sending in that as well.
All right, well, let's dive into it,
okay?
Because I do have it kind of broken down here into segments. I really tried to pick up on things he repeated.
Yeah.
Motifs, they're called, right?
Yes. Yep.
Repeating little pieces of
detail.
Detail, yeah, sure.
Whatever you want it to be.
So I want to get into each one. Again, we might be overanalyzing here, but that's what I love to do. I love to read into everything too much and come up with our own analysis. So, Jesse, I want to start with a couple things he said, and that's tons of scoring chances all night and getting decent looks, but the finishing touches weren't there. Of course, he didn't say these right back to back. They kind of appeared here and then here. So I want to ask you, what do you think of the offensive chances that the Avalanche have generated? Not just in that Vegas game, but as the season, 10 games into it now, how do you feel about just the offensive threat that the Avalanche possess right now?
So let me answer that in terms of the Vegas game, and then I'll kind of step back. I thought the Avs were fine for 25 to 30 minutes of that game. I really did. Like, it was frustrating hockey to watch because the Avs, whenever they play against the Vegas Golden Knights, one of two things happens. Vegas gets out in front and they just start packing the center of the ice and just eating pucks and basically saying, we're going to give you nothing for high-end scoring opportunities. Or the Avs are able to break through that early, they get out to a lead, and Vegas has to start running, and it's really hard for Vegas to play that game with the Avs. Mm-hmm. For as good as these two teams are, I feel like it's rare that we get like a great game between them. I feel like a lot of the times one team runs away. I felt like in that game, the Avs, one of the notes that I had written down was possessing a lot, generating little. And I thought the Avs had the puck a lot in that game against Vegas and were establishing decent ozone time, but I don't really think they were creating anything super dangerous. Again, they had the puck on their stick a lot. They were putting a lot of pucks towards the net, but it never really felt like anything was overly threatening. In terms of the season as a whole, I actually don't, for 10 games in with all the new pieces, I actually don't have a huge issue for their overall kind of chance creation. Now, I haven't dived too hard into any analytic models that would back up or disprove that. But I mean, like, even against Pittsburgh, I thought Tristan Jarry had to make 2, 3, maybe even 4 really nice saves. The game against San Jose where they only, they score at the last second. Again, I thought Mackenzie Blackwood was great. There were 4 or 5 goals in that game that he stole off the goal line. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, same thing. Vegas was really the first game for me where I felt like offensively there wasn't a dangerous moment for them.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think you're spot on with that. Maybe the way you broke down the Vegas game offensively, I kind of feel that throughout the rest of the season, but I wouldn't say it's to a point where I need to bring it up and say, hey, there's something wrong with this offense. They're not generating chances. Yeah. And I think something we heard a couple times was grade A chances, right? He was talking in terms of giving them up. I don't hear him talking about them getting grade A chances. They're getting good looks. They're getting good chances, but they're not getting those grade A's, at least not in the Vegas game. So I think there's a little bit of tweaking to go with the offense right now. I mean, of course, you can point towards the roster selection, who's in the lineup versus who's not. But as far as X's and O's purely, I think they just got to find a way to develop a little bit more of a threat. It's not so much just pucks on net, go take the goalie's eyes, and try to find rebounds. You got to do a little bit more than that, right?
To me, JJ, and this maybe flies in the face of what your topic is here, so I apologize. To me, their issue is the way they're defending. This team, again, let's go back 2 seasons to the Cup year when they were, dominant on both ends of the ice, and even stretches last year. This team's offense comes through their defense. They create in the offensive zone based off what they do defensively. And they are one of the best teams, obviously, off the transition, off the rush. And they've been a team for the last couple of years, even for a lot of last year, that you make a mistake and it's in the back of your net. Like the Avs will punish you every time if you make that mistake. And that's the part to me that I'm watching their game, and it's like they're giving up, like he said, grade A chances. They're allowing teams to establish the zone for long stretches. Even if they don't give up much, the Avs are going long stretches without the puck. And when they are getting it, they're having to, get a change, slow down, let half the team change before they can start. They need to get back to being able to transition from defense to offense quickly, and that starts with them defending better. I really do. I think when the Avs are on, it's weird to talk about it like that for hockey. When the Avs are on offense, the Avs are in the offensive zone with the puck on their stick, I feel like they're creating fine. But the way they're getting there is not the same as the way they've gotten there these last couple of years, and that's what I think they need to get to.
Oh, that's an interesting breakdown. I like that, and that kind of transitions us nicely into the next motif that I have, and that's tough effort defensively. No excuse to not give a better effort. Record's okay, just have to be better defensively. 2 shorties is really bad. That's the next group of kind of the same message that Nathan MacKinnon was trying to say, and that's exactly it. He brought up 4 different times how he felt the defensive side of the puck was exactly what was the issue. So maybe we're looking a little bit into the offense too much in that first conversation, but I mean, you get shut out 3 times in 4 games. Some offense needs to be looked at for sure. But hey, if you think it starts in the defensive end, I think that's pretty valid analysis right there.
I mean, because like you look again at the Vegas game, it's 1-0, and the Avs are starting to push pace a little bit. And again, when you're playing against a team the way that Vegas was playing, where again they really are, dude. Like and that's part of the reason why I think Vegas won the Stanley Cup with Adin Hill. Adin Hill's been good to start this season, but point is, he was their 4th goaltender. Part of the reason why I think they were able to do that is because their team defense is great. Their individual defenders maybe aren't to the caliber of the Avs top 4, but like they defend in their own zone so well. And it's just, you get down by 2 against them late in the game, it's going to be hard to make that up. But I thought the Avs were starting to push, and I said, okay, if they get 1 and tie it up, Vegas has to change the way they're playing here. And it gives the Avs a shot of life. And then it was just 3 boneheaded bad plays. Sloppy with the puck, bad in their own end. Just 3 kind of bang, bang, bang. You're down 4-0. The game's over. And that to me is there. You were starting to pick up steam in the offensive zone, and then you let play in your own end just completely, literally end the game. And so that to me is I'm not worried about depth scoring yet. I do think someone like Ryan Johansson has more to give. Jonathan Drouin more to give. Tomas Tatar more to give. I think there are guys offensively that can be producing more, sure. But I really do, like, until you're going to stop giving up some of those chances that we saw in Vegas, like, you're chasing your tail a little bit here, just trying to stay in the game. And it's hard to score 5 goals every night. And if you keep giving up these types of chances, that's what they're going to have to do.
Well, and like you kind of said earlier, how the Avalanche used to be a team of you give them a little window, you make a little mistake, they're going to make you pay for it. It seems like that's exactly what's happening
Yes,
to the Avalanche.
I agree.
They make a little mistake, and somehow the other team is capitalizing almost every time. I don't know if it's a confidence in Alexander Georgiev, like, oh shoot, I made that mistake, he's got us, and then he maybe hasn't necessarily been there as much as we expect him to be. But yeah, it feels like a stroke of bad luck combined with a little bit of mind lapses here and there.
And I do also think that they're just a little frustrated. Like I think this is a frustrating situation for them, that things aren't clicking. Not scoring goals is frustrating, obviously. And I think it just all kind of compounds. Ooh. And, when things aren't going well, you get a little frustrated. You make another mistake. It's in the back of your net. Pisses you off more. And, Mikko mentioned that today, that after practice, that he thinks everyone's gripping the stick a little tight. And that leads to more mistakes. And that leads to frustration and finger pointing. And not that I'm saying anyone's on the benches, pointing. But, that's what it kind of stacks to, right? And so they need to find a way to hit the reset button. We're 7-3. That was bad. That was really bad.
That's the caveat, though, is even in the wins, you heard over and over,
100%.
we haven't played well.
Well, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think they need to take it like, okay, 10 games, we haven't liked the way that we played once, and we're 7-3. We need to reset and just start. We're 0-0, 0-0. Let's start again right now and play the right way. Cale Makar made a comment to me. I think it was after the Buffalo loss. I think he was back in Colorado after a practice or something like that after the Buffalo loss, and he made the comment. He said, "I don't know if we maybe got complacent at 6-0 or what," but he was like, we definitely not feeling as good in here. And I don't necessarily want to say complacent, because I do think I think professional athletes are very proud. I don't think but I do think that they got off to a 6-0 start when they hadn't played well. And I just think human nature, there was a little bit of like, yeah, we're pretty good. We're a pretty good team. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, whatever. And I do just think they got caught a little bit looking past games, thinking like, well, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way to win.
Have you seen our power play?
Right.
Yeah.
And now I just think it didn't happen a couple times. And I just think there's a little bit of frustration, and I think that's a lot of what you're saying. I think a lot of what's wrong with this group right now is between the ears.
And I think it's interesting that you've talked to Cale Makar. We've heard from Nathan MacKinnon. They can't pinpoint the issue.
Yeah.
Right? They can have their theories. And you can see them even while we're interviewing them. Their wheels are spinning. They're trying to think of anything they can throw out that might be relevant, but it's tough for them to even put a finger on it. So I agree with you. Take a deep breath, reset, and move on.
Well, because my guess, honestly, JJ, would be that like there isn't anything wrong. You know what I mean?
It feels like it.
Right. But like, that's why I think like when we ask them, what's going on, the reason they're having a hard time pinpointing is because I don't really think that it's like, well, our power play isn't clicking. We're overthinking it. It's like don't know. There's just a weird feel. Like, it's just a weird vibe a little bit. And I'm also coupling this a little bit with something Jared Bednar said. It was on that East Coast road trip where he said, talk to him about guys buying into roles, because he's talked about that being a huge deal for him, that people have to be bought into their role. I remember Eric Johnson talked to us about that also last year, where it's like buying into your role doesn't mean, being the best third liner in the league. It means being a third liner, even if you think you should be a second liner, and just taking pride in that role and saying, I'm going to do this to the highest level that I possibly can, even though I think I can be doing more. And Jared Bednar made the comment to us that some of the newer faces, and I don't even necessarily know if it's newer faces or, just with the way that the roster has kind of shifted, he said guys we're getting there. Guys are starting to understand that we need him to play a role, but he said that guys are wanting to do more, and we're not quite there yet. That is my personal theory, JJ, is that when Nathan MacKinnon says the chemistry is off, to me that is, and I'm plucking his name purely because he's a new guy and it's easy to just use him as the example. I'm not saying I've heard any of this I'm just using him purely as an example. But like, I do think that you've maybe got someone like Ross Colton. I am not saying it's Ross Colton. I'm just using him as the example because he's new. Who are saying, well, no, I came here to get a bigger opportunity. I want to be, I should be on that second line. I play with speed. I can do that. I can do that, coach. I can do it. I'll give you everything. And it's like, I know you can't. I need you to do this because that's how we're going to win. If you can take that same energy and apply it to the role that you're in, that gives us a depth that nobody can match, and that's how we win. Again, I'm not saying that Ross Colton is saying that, but that to me is my sense, is that they are trying to figure out how this group gets on the same page and understands, and maybe this is what these 3 losses do. That's what happens when we aren't bought in. We're a really good team, and yeah, we're going to skill our way to wins this year. We're going to skill our way to probably a lot of wins this year. But if we want to win games the right way, if we're going to try to skill our way to wins, we're going to end up with nights like that twice a month. And then we're going to win a bunch of games. But we're going to get embarrassed a lot too. Not to take a random stray jab at the Edmonton Oilers, that's what I see when I watch the Edmonton Oilers. We're just going to go, we're just going to go win. If we're down by 1, put Connor and Leon out there. Oh, nice, we got to win. What an elite team we are. It's like, no, you have better players than the other team, and you figured out a way to win. But that's why you also see the Oilers on the wrong side of some really lopsided games sometimes, and why they've kind of been run out of the building the last 2 years in the playoffs against the Avs and Vegas. So that's my hunch. When you hear guys say the chemistry's not right, things just aren't clicking, and then Jared Bednar saying we want guys to be bought in, I think that's the answer somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I hear that. We've heard Jared Bednar even say, the new guys are still figuring out how to play to the identity of the team.
Mm-hmm.
They are figuring it out. It's progressive, right? It's happening currently. Not they figured it out, not they haven't figured it out. It's a process, right? So we're only 10 games in. It's an 82-game season. Probably by game 82, these guys will be more comfortable. They'll know how to play to the identity of the team. Everything will feel a lot more safe. But coming into the season, you and I even mentioned, there's so many new guys you're slotting into that forward group. It's not going to be seamless.
Yeah, and again, I think there was a little bit of false sense of maybe where they were in that process because of the hot start they got off to. But yeah, I don't know. It's I go back to the 21-22 season, the year that they win. And do you remember the first game? The first game. After 10 games, do you remember what the record was? The year they won the cup?
Not off the top of my head.
4-5-1, and they had just lost back-to-back games to the Columbus Blue Jackets in ugly fashion. Like, they did not look good in either game. And there was questions starting to come up of like, all right, we're 10 games into this season. Did that Vegas loss, did that shake the team? Are they now starting to doubt themselves? And they were having to answer those questions a bit. And then they found a way to climb out of it and say, again, kind of the conversation we were just having. Hey, if that's how we're going to play, these are the results we're going to end up with. Do we want to end up with those results, or do we want to do this the right way? And I think this group is having to go through that same process of figuring out exactly what you were saying. How to play with this team, how the culture is with this team, how to be bought in with this group. And so now I'm not saying that game 11, they're going to flip the switch like they did 2 years ago, but I was thinking about that today at practice. I said, well, that was a 10-game sample size. We're 10 games in here, and I think you probably feel about the same right now as you did 2 years ago. Yikes. There's a lot of things this group to get figured out, but to your point, it's 82 games.
Yeah, I think one thing we can rest our hat on is that Jared Bednar is a great coach. What makes him a great coach is that he's a great teacher. He's not going to stop teaching Game 10. He's going to continue to work with these guys, continue to help them. They have professional level hockey minds. They're going to grasp it eventually. Let the process play out. Come Game 82, if they're still looking the way they did in the last or in 3 of the last 4 games, then yeah, we can definitely start to throw fits. But I think we just got to trust the process. Trust Coach Bednar. He's hired as that role for a reason, and just let everything play out.
And he is great about having a pulse on the group and the individuals and knowing what he needs to do to get the most out of those, players, groups, the whole team, whatever.
Right. MacKinnon says, I don't know. Cale Makar, he says, I don't know. Jared Bednar knows. Jared Bednar knows exactly what he's got to fix and where, and you just got to let him have the time.
Yep.
I think that goes well with the motif. So we could just put this behind us of feels disconnected, chemistry feels off, just a little off, not really feeling positive. The last thing I wanted to throw out there about that little group of thoughts from Nathan MacKinnon is after you asked him if there's any positivity out there, he kind of threw in a little subtle joke. He says, no, we're not feeling positive. I'm positive that we're better than this. And that made me at least giggle, a little bit of light in the dark times, I guess.
Well, it was funny because he was the one who made the comment. He said, 7-3, so thankfully the record's still all right. So I was kind of trying to end it on a little bit of an up note. Well, hey, 7-3, does that allow you guys to feel positive about, everything overall? And I thought the fact that he said, no, not really, I thought that was interesting because that, Broncos fans on Twitter don't like me because I talk about the fact that this Broncos group they've got right now, I say they're losers. And I don't mean that in they're dorks, but I mean they have a losing culture over there.
They're a bunch of groceries.
Right. And I think you and I have talked about it. The game where the Broncos lost to the Miami Dolphins, they gave up 70 points. Marvin Mims runs back a kick return to bring them within 52 points, I think, at that point. And 3 players run over. They all jump up and they're celebrating. And I was like, what a bunch of losers. They're that is celebrating individual success. And, oh, okay, well, hey, we're getting our asses kicked. And yeah, we're going to be embarrassed on national television, but what a sick return. To me, Nathan MacKinnon saying, no, we don't feel good at 7-3. That's a championship winner's mindset. We've backed our way into 7 wins, and we are not happy with backing our way into 7 wins. We aren't just looking at the points. We're not just looking at the standings where we sit 1 point out of top seed in the Central Division, 3 points out of top seed in the West. We aren't looking at that. We aren't playing well, and I'm embarrassed as an individual.
Man, this conversation has gone so well because that transitioned us nicely into the final motif, because that's exactly right. He's brutal but fair, right? And he spent some time pointing the finger at himself. So the final motif I wanted to get into is starts with the top players to be better. We're not getting the job done. New players, ... and myself need to be better everywhere, defensively and offensively. Terrible feeling, and best players need to be better leaders. So I do like the way he is pointing at himself, but he's also pointing at everybody, just saying every single aspect of this team needs to be cranked up a notch. And he brought himself up 3 times, so credit to that.
Yep.
But I also really respect the hell out of gently pointing the finger at the rest of the team.
Well, because that is what you've heard from people, that they say that MacKinnon does do well. Again, it doesn't it comes off in funny ways sometimes, funny to us. But that intensity, that's why you've heard people relate him to Michael Jordan based on that Last Dance documentary, because Michael Jordan was brutal and brutal on his teammates because he wanted to win. And he's saying, I expect nothing but 150% out of myself, so I expect you to give that same thing. And I did. I thought that was Nathan MacKinnon, like you said, in a good leadership way of saying, I need to be better, and that goes for everybody. We need to be better, and that goes for me as well, I guess is a better way of saying that. Or it starts with me. I have to be better because I am the leader of this team, whether I wanted to be or not. Whether I wanted Gabe to come back and, for him to take on the captain duty or not, I'm the leader of this team now. I have to be better, and I need everyone else to follow me because we aren't good enough right now. And so I'm with you. I'm interested. I said it off the top. I'm interested to see what Nathan MacKinnon does going forward. Not necessarily on the ice. We know what he's going to do on the ice. It'll come for him. 9 points in 10 games.
As a leader, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what he does as a leader.
Yeah, me too. That being said, nothing a little home cooking can't fix, right? The Avalanche finally on a homestand next 3 games here at Ball Arena, starting with the New Jersey Devils, who apparently are missing Jack Hughes. So,
yeah, and I don't think he's sure. I think he's been banged up as well.
So, well, we know the Avalanche. Actually, the road trips so far have been a little bit of a grind. So having this nice – we even talked to Josh Manson off the record the other day, and he was like, man, I'm ready for a homestand. My wife is ready to kill me. So, all of them are excited to just have a 3-game stretch here, really focus, get some practices in, get your normal routines in, and really be able to right the ship. This homestand might be exactly what the doctor ordered.
There's no – I'm sure even in the comments of this, people are going to say they stay in nice hotels, they fly on a private jet, they don't have to go through the airport. And that is all true. The way that they get to travel is, in terms of traveling, it is. It's the best way you can do it.
It's grade A.
Right. It's a grade A way to travel. You got a big private plane. They stay in the nicest hotels. Their transportation is all always taken care of. All that stuff. But there is no replicating sleeping in your own bed. There is no substitution for being at home. This is a more veteran group. So a lot of these guys that have families, have kids, have pets, dogs, things like that just you can't replicate being around that. And as nice as it is to be out on the road and be with the group, and I do think that will ultimately help them as the season wears on. That here's the one thing that I want to make sure we touch on. Not once has anybody commented on the fact that things aren't working off the ice. In fact, the exact opposite. We have heard from a lot of guys, including Nathan MacKinnon, that the group is gelling off the ice really quickly, that everyone's getting along really well. I do just think that this is a on-the-ice thing.
It's a learning curve. It's simply that. There's so many new pieces to plug in that they're not going to just...
Ross Colton comes from a championship team, but all the other new guys are trying to win their first one. And I used to think that people way overvalued experience. I don't anymore. I think you can see a team that has gone through it and gotten over the hump versus a team that hasn't. There is a difference there. And I think when teams trade for guys purely because he's won a Stanley Cup, I think that's when it's maybe like, well, you're overvaluing that one guy because he was part of a championship team. But coming into this culture, there's learning to it even for veterans like Ryan Johansson. When you've never, Nathan MacKinnon made the joke that summer after they won the cup. He said, we used to say, this is the year, we can feel it. And he goes, looking back on it, now that we've done it, we were never even close. We were never even close mentally to understanding what it takes. And so I just think that is where it's struggling to translate on the ice, the great kind of chemistry they're building off of it.
I guess one thing you can be confident in a guy like Ryan Johansson is that he has kind of been here before. He's been on some bad teams that were expected to be pretty good, and they underachieved. And so, I think he can kind of head the ship in terms of what's got to be done to right it during the regular season. And it's funny you bring up the off-ice stuff because I feel like Ryan Johansson is in the middle of all the off-ice camaraderie, right? Somehow he's in control of the aux cord post-game. We heard today that he was in charge of making the shirts for Josh Manson's mom on the mom's trip.
Yep.
He's just very involved, and he's obviously going out of his way to be that good teammate that, I think everything camaraderie-wise is okay. Man, I'm stumbling through my words.
Dude, I know.
Today.
Me too.
Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, he's a guy that I think that needs to. I think Nathan MacKinnon is going to try to fill this leadership role, but it's clear that you're going to need it by committee. He's a guy that I think he needs to be bought into his role, and I think part of that is going to come with him establishing himself as a little bit more of a leader.
Yeah. So how about looking ahead at the homestand? Anything stand out in particular these next 3 games as, something the Avalanche can take advantage of, or does it feel like they're just going to have to basically take it, I'm going to even say 5 minutes at a time, just play the best 5 minutes? And
so literally, dude, that's all it is. Like, we can sit here and talk about, oh, here's what we think, here's what needs to happen. I was on the radio earlier on Altitude, and D-Mac asked me, what changes need to be made. And I told him, I said, there's no changes. This team just got to go out and execute better. They've got to play better. And Jared Bednar has always had that philosophy of 5 minutes at a time. Win the next 5 minute chunk. The Avs need to go out and win the first 5 minutes against the New Jersey Devils tomorrow and go from there.
Yep. Just got to beat the goalie too, right? It's not that complicated. Don't overanalyze. Just keep getting pucks and make them difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Avalanche alumni made an appearance today after practice.
Dude.
We got to see
sweet.
Peter Forsberg, Milan Hajduk, Joe Sakic. How fun was that? I had to skip practice today.
Yeah.
I was on babysitting duty, but very disappointed I missed those names hop on the ice. It's just funny watching them and not being in like Avalanche gear, right? You had Peter Forsberg in some crazy blue socks.
Well, I mean, they're just out there like kind of, like doing a stick and puck. That's, kind of the vibe it feels. And everyone's in a different jersey, different gear, all that stuff. But no, dude, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say, growing up in Denver, I've told the story a bunch of times on different shows. My family moved here in 1994, late 1994. Obviously, the Avs, arrived just a year later. I was a young kid at the time, and I really that era was what helped made me fall in love with hockey and the game and all that. So it was cool. I was telling someone there, I said, damn, it's pretty sweet that in 2023, just to get to see them even out there messing around, Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Milan Hajduk, like to get to see them out on the ice, like it's pretty cool. Like it was a cool, fun little moment there today for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of take advantage and forget how cool what we do really is, right? I mean, we're around these guys a lot. Sometimes they make us mad. Sometimes we make them mad. They're younger than me. Now that EJ's gone, if I was on the team, I'd be one of the older players on the team.
Yep.
I guess there's still a couple older guys, huh? But those were the guys that we looked up to, the Peter Forsbergs, the Milan Hajduks, the Joe Sakics, as being these hockey gods. I mean, we were children at the time, right? So we looked up to them like, this is it. Kids these days are looking up at Mikko Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar as the same way. We forget that, so I think these guys are legit that we're talking to on a daily basis.
I think I have the best way to sum up what it was to see those three guys on the ice today. After practice, because a bunch of them, all the media, we went over and started watching them once they got out there instead of watching practice, for just the last handful of minutes. Practice was done. They were also skating. They had started kind of playing a game just with all the guys they had out there, a bunch of Avs alumni, Kyle Quincy, John Michael Lyles, John Mitchell, all also out there. And Mikko Rantanen is up there taking pictures and videos on his phone. So, like, that to me, I think was kind of the, like, yeah, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Just because, to your point, those are, yes, I know he works for one of them now, but, like, those are the guys that Mikko Rantanen looked up to as a kid.
I mean, the Avalanche were such a powerhouse when we were young, too, right? You ask any goalie nowadays, well, maybe not because they're getting a little bit young, but before you can ask any goalie who their favorite goalie was, 10 times out of 10, it was Patrick Waugh.
Aiden Hill wears number 33. Young goaltender for the Vegas Golden Knights still. You know what I mean? Like, those 90s, early 2000s Avs teams were iconic hockey teams, like for the game, let alone Denver sports.
All right, so to wrap up the show today, Jesse, you put a call out there for a couple questions. Thank you to everybody who participated. We'll try to get through a few of these as we have to get out of here shortly, but first one coming in was, you've been in the locker room this season after 10 games and Saturday's ugly loss. What's your read on the room? Does the team lack chemistry or leadership? I mean, we kind of spent the whole show talking about that, but in short, what's your response?
I really do. I think the locker room, again, is good. Like, you and I have been in there. Like, these guys, they seem like they like each other. There's a lot. It's very chatty. It's very vocal. There's a lot of laughter. You got music going. Like, the room does. It feels fine. It feels good. Again, I do think they are missing Gabe's type of leadership. I think they have really good leaders on that team. but I think they are missing. I referred to it on altitude as the emotional heartbeat. That's to me what Gabe Landeskog was. He had a pulse on where the team was at. He understood the moments and when to say something. That's what I think they're missing, and I think they're trying to figure out who's going to play that role.
I'm curious if you simplify that a little bit. And right now with Gabe's absence, it's kind of okay, who's going to lead? Let's lead by committee. Everybody kind of in their own way stands up rather than having a one defined, you're the one leader. It's not going to anybody else. We don't need to spread this around. But it could just be overanalyzed.
Well, because no. I don't think it's necessarily overanalyzing because, again, Gabe Landeskog was the kind of guy that, like, no matter if he played well, the team played well, he was bad, the team got blown out, or the team won by 8, he got up and spoke no matter what. So I do just think there's a little bit of like I didn't play well tonight, so I don't have anything to say as we're, whatever. As we're to your point, Gabe Landeskog was the guy, no matter what. I do think that element of leadership is missing. I think it's possible for them to have someone else step up and fill that role, but it's just a matter of figuring out who that is, who can, because not just anybody can, right? I think they got to get that part figured out.
Moving on to the next question. Does Ryan Johansson even fit the Avs system? Now, I think this question's, you really got to listen to what the question's saying. Does Ryan Johansson fit the Avs system? Not necessarily does it fit on the Avs, not necessarily does it fit from a camaraderie standpoint like we just touched on.
I think there's a role for him to play in this system. I think he doesn't play with the same quickness that the rest of the team does. And I think that is part of what makes it a little bit harder for him to play off the rush the way that they like to within this system. But, we talked a lot about roles. I think there is a role for him. And I really do think that he gives them something different. And that's actually what I like about him. In terms of how he fits with the team, is he is something a little bit different than what they have. And I think as he settles in, I think you are going to find him parked in the middle of the ice just being a nightmare. But he is one guy, again, not that I think he's been bad or he's a bad dude or he's not getting along. I think the opposite of all those. But he's one guy that I think they need to get him in the appropriate role. And I don't think he's there yet. Right.
That's exactly what my answer is not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the run and gun, you're going to fly up the ice and go 1,000,000 miles per hour? No. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a role on the team. They miss the presence of Gabe Landeskog in front of the net. We've seen in small spurts Ryan Johansson have a very similar presence. I mean, the two goals he's scored so far, three, have been right around the net, right? I mean, we remember the one that he batted out of midair. Yep. That skill that you have from being a guy that knows how to play in front of the net. So just got to let the process unfold, let him get a little more comfortable, and I think we'll see him really start to buzz here any moment. I mean, let's not forget how long it took Val Nichushkin to score a goal, not even be a fit in the team to really produce anything offensively at all. I remember saying, is this guy ever going to score a goal? Who knows? So let's give a little bit of slack here, right? Best current hockey rivalry in the NHL, and who has the scariest team in 3 years?
Scariest, I'm assuming they mean like who had the best team, like the biggest like buzzsaw.
In the last 3 years? I was having a hard time deciphering that question.
Yeah, that's how I'm going to take it.
Okay.
Honestly, or are you talking about? I'm going to take it with who was the best. And really, I think the 2022 Avs are in there. Of the last 3 years?
I mean, I have to say,
I think it's probably the Avs.
The Boston Bruins of last year were unreal.
Yeah. Yep.
The way they fell apart in the offseason, I think, is something no one, even the Florida Panthers themselves, saw coming.
Yeah.
So, from a regular season standpoint,
them.
I'd say Boston.
That 22 Avs team, though, when they hit their stride and like the guys that not only that they had on that roster, but that were like having career years, like to me, that was a team that was really hard to play with. And then best current rivalry.
I wanted to say Calgary-Edmonton, but that's really flamed out. I mean, last year it flamed out, right?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I was going to say. I honestly don't. No, you know what games have honestly been really fun last week? Has been Florida Tampa.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Those have been really fun, like nasty games. So
So anywhere Matt Tkachuk goes,
yeah,
whoever that team's rival is.
I was gonna say I will right now on November 6th, 2023. I'll say it's Florida Tampa because they've both been really good and they have really good players. So that's what I'll say for right now, just off the top of my head.
I think that's a pretty strong answer. Finally, before we head out of here, when you cover a specific team, at what point do you limit your biases in coverage? Some guys are more homers than others, and I've always wondered why media folk choose to walk that line differently. I feel like we could almost spend an entire podcast on this one. It's tough to really answer in short, but I think my initial thought is just simply personality, right? I mean, some people tend to share things more than others. Some people are very open about this or that, whether it's, stuff going on in their lives or mental health or, say what you want. Some people just don't want to share that much stuff. Some people don't want to show their cards and say, hey, I've been the biggest Avs fan my entire life.
Right.
I moved all the way from Detroit to come do this.
Right.
Some people are going to keep that a little bit closer to the vest, and I don't think there's really much to read into it. Just simply, A, who you are, and B, the way the landscape of this industry has just kind of developed.
So that was going to be my answers. I do think there's a lot of it. I think what you said is right. I think one is just personal preference. How do you want to kind of carry yourself if you are going into the room? Like if you're around the team on the day-to-day beat, how do you want to kind of present yourself? And then I do think a lot of it too is in the way that media has shifted in newer media. I think a lot of it is kind of publication driven, just in terms of like, if you're writing for the say like the Denver Post, just like or whatever it is for your local city, like the newspaper. Typically, those newspapers just want you to kind of be like a report what's happening.
Yep.
Just tell us what's going on. So like there is some of that is going to be a little bit more, hey, we want you to be like this. And there are other publications now that don't mind blurring the line or are cool having both sides of that coin. I don't think either is right or wrong. Like you said, it's a matter of what you feel speaks to.
And we all have different upbringings, right? I mean, you look at the Avalanche press box itself. Some of us are journalists. Some of us are hockey guys. A couple of us are somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just the way life's waves have carried you throughout your life.
Well, and I will also say that when you are around a team and you're on a beat day to day, in my opinion, it is hard to not like root for their success as individuals because you get to know these people a little better. Like when Bowen Byram, was dealing with all the concussion stuff, and when he came back, I was so happy for him as a person to like see him get back into games and scoring goals and stuff. It's like, that's awesome for him because I know he's such a good kid and he's worked really hard. Like it's just, to me, it's hard to not feel good for them when they win the Stanley Cup. That's not necessarily rooting for them or cheering for them, regardless of who the individual is and what outlet they're at. I do think there is a little bit of inherent, like, when you're around them, and let's also be fully honest here. Everyone who covers a team in a local market has a vested interest in how they're doing because it almost directly correlates to.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Jesse. We started this whole podcast talking about how sometimes it stinks to talk to Nathan MacKinnon because he's not going to give you what you want as far as an interview. So when they're doing great and they're feeling good about talking, our content is
everybody's
an exact replica of that, right? So
now, again, I was also making the joke with someone recently that like that pendulum also swings on the far other end, that like the Broncos right now, part of what makes them so interesting is that, hey, this team looked like an absolute tire fire and they won a couple games. How bad, like there is pendulums to,
Yeah, they feel like they're rallying around their hatred of the media, the Broncos.
Right. So it is. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. They had another. I want to bookmark the other question from the person who left out because I thought they had another good one too. But we'll come back to it on the next episode.
Oh, I only read the ones that I saw. Maybe I wasn't tagged in that second one.
You're good.
All right. Well, that'll do it for today. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Since it's a homestand, we're gonna be back lately we've been shooting out about one podcast a week. We'll be back this week for another one for sure. And I'm excited for a homestand to really pump out some great content. You and I have worked for several weeks on a lot of things of what we plan to do this week. So I'm excited.
Me too.
I hope you guys are too. So thanks for hanging out with us today. For Jesse, I'm JJ. This is Guerilla Sports.